Welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, sharing this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome. Welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness and the highest levels of love light. It is morning here. It's still kind of dark outside. I'm just getting my day going. And I really wanted to pop on, do a little inflow channeled message, but also talk about one of the pictures I've been shown in regards to the energy that many of us are feeling right now for the month of October. What I was shown, so I'm just going to dive right into it. I was shown this picture of, I had to turn on extra light because it's so dark in here, so hopefully you'll be able to see this with my blurry background and my ring cameras, or ring, not cameras, but lights. Oh, good. Wow, it showed up pretty well. And it's backwards. So I was shown this colander and this bubble down at the bottom of this colander, and this was time. This is where we are now. Here's our bubble up here, and this is where we were in a particular time space, and all of this down here is a bubble of energy. And what I was essentially shown, for whatever reason, having to do with physics that I'm not really sure of, or some type of quantum, what I'm hearing is quantum tunneling. Let's play with that, shall we? We'll get to that in just a moment. But basically the key words I had written were bubble, node, memory, information, and access. And I've always talked about this, for those of you who've seen these videos before. I see things in bubbles. I've always seen things in bubbles. My husband might lovingly refer to that as a bubble head, but it literally is, for me, everything's in bubbles. So I see subsets, or bubbles within bubbles within bubbles of energy. I see everybody walking around in a bubble, but it's true. It's like we have this toroidal field that's around us that we could call a bubble. And if you've ever seen dolphins blowing bubbles, in order to, or whales blow bubbles, in order to kind of corral their meals in a certain area, it kind of looks like that. We're constantly sending out these bubbles of energy, which are toroidal fields, which are waves that are encapsulated within a particular energy. So when we have a timeline, I see it as a bubble of time that's encapsulated in this membrane. And I don't know what the membrane material is, but essentially it holds information. It's a node, it's an access point. If you look at a crystal lattice work, they're attached with bubbles. And each of those lines intersects at a bubble. And then that bubble holds certain energy that contains the shape, or molds the shape of the crystal, the lattice work structure. So for whatever reason I was shown, and this might be more specific down the road, but it was just something my guides were trying to share with me, what we are feeling. So if we look at one colander of time and another colander of time side by side, and we could see these maybe as parallel realities, or what I was being shown is we're having this, what looks like an hourglass. So it's like they're converging and coming together. So here's one colander, it changes its shape into an hourglass, and the other colander fits right below it. And this energy at the bottom, or the base of this other colander, which is, we could call it the past, is coming up. It's being pulled or pushed up by some force of energy. And so now here we are at this top colander. I didn't make the shape of the hourglass. This is coming up through the bottom, and now it's merging, and these two lines of energy are intersecting timelines. What's held in that bubble from our past, from my perspective, is attached to 2020, approximately 2019, 2020, in that particular framework. So everything, I'm getting goosebumps, that we experienced and now is held within our cells, within our memory, within our bank, within this membrane, within this node, what I'm being shown has been burped up, we'll say, And now it's all coming up to be kind of, I know it sounds kind of gross, but to be reassessed, to be reaccessed, to be reaccessed across reference, across point, to be combined. And that is why a lot of us are feeling repeat patterns, repeat cycles coming up. Now we could also look at it as a spiral. So I'm being called to show one other picture that might be a little bit more specific and a little bit more relevant. And we can see time on a coil within this colander. And those orange little dots are the nodes, right? And as that coil expands, they become farther and farther apart. But we're in a period of potential, I'm hearing contraction and expansion. So I'm being called. So these coils get closer together and then they expand out and then they come back together. And that creates this, it's like all of a sudden we're closer for whatever reason with that period of time. We're back around, coming around again. I know nothing stays the same. So it's like, it's not the same exactly, but it is an access to this point in time. It gives us, let me just play with this. I'm being called to look up a word. So I'm being called to look up quantum tunneling. So let's do that, shall we? In physics, quantum tunneling, barrier penetration, or simply tunneling is a quantum mechanical phenomenon in which an object such as an electron or atom passes through a potential energy barrier. Okay, so that's part of what I was seeing with the bubble. The membrane is an energy barrier. So I just am being called to stop and play with this for a moment, because remember, if you've watched the way that I communicate, I use everything within my field to access a deeper level of or layer of consciousness based on what I have access to. I am not clearly a physicist or mathematician, but I do have a way of communicating that allows me access to this information, and I have to then interpret it to the best of my abilities. So this is what's going on right now from what I can see. And this word has come up for me quite a few times. So let's just talk about our energy for a moment and forget about time for a second. Let's picture each of us encompassed by an energy body. So we have our skin, right, that holds all of our organs. Yet our senses are constantly communicating with our environment around us. So our thoughts aren't encapsulated in our body, right? So our energy body has layers. I'm being shown an egg, right? We have a physical, the skin. We have emotional bubble. We have thought bubbles. We have, it's just an energy soup that we're all connected in through all of these bubbles. So when we are interacting with another human, we are combining our bubbles of energy. Yet it doesn't mean that we just melt into each other and become one, because we're living this reality in a sense of separation. That's why we're here, to have our own, from my perspective, everything is just from my own, what I'm learning or remembering about myself and reality. So from my perspective, we're having this individual experience, even though we are all part of the one. And we have to have a certain amount of separation or energy barrier that keeps us from completely merging back into the one. So I'm being called to play with this a little bit and then share that about time. So let me continue with this. So an object as an electron or atom passes through a potential energy barrier that, according to classical mechanics, the object does not have sufficient energy to enter or surmount. Ooh. Tunneling is a consequence of the wave nature of matter, where the quantum wave function describes the state of a particle or other physical system, and wave equations such as the Schrödinger equation describe their behavior. the probability of transmission of a wave packet through a barrier decreases exponentially with the barrier height, the barrier width, and the tunneling particle's mass. So tunneling is seen most prominently in low mass particles, such as electrons or protons, tunneling through microscopically narrow barriers. Whew, okay. So much here. My brain is literally going won't, won't. So I'm seeing this as the tunnel and the barriers, but I'm also seeing these bubbles as barriers, potential energy barrier. Now, if we play with that, okay. So let me just explain it from what I was being shown in my perspective, and then I'll get back into quantum tunneling, which I'm just playing with this. A lot of the things that I share aren't the actual definition. I utilize it as a bounce off technique. I bounce or I ping off of it, and then it takes me into the space of what I'm trying to understand. So what I was shown is that our skin suit and our technology is absorbing more nutrients, okay? It's absorbed, and this is all connected. Everything's connected. It's absorbing more electrons. It's producing more electrons, electrical activity, neutrons, neutrinos, nutrition is kind of the play on words I've been tuning into. This is in part because of the sun and the particle radiation, particulation, particle articulation that is coming through our potential time lock. So this is all a play on words. It has to do with quantum mechanics. So we're absorbing these neutrinos, these nutrients, this nutrition, and it's allowing us to break down certain chemical barriers that were placed there before. And so this also enhances what I'm hearing is our traction. So this is a play on words. I'm going to come back maybe and break this down a little bit. And what I'm hearing is attraction. So we're now attracting to and bonding with, each other on a different level, because now we're recognizing birds of a feather much easier, much faster, and it's becoming this magnetic attraction that's happening in a subatomic scale, harmonic, Libra, October, this time. But it also has to do with we're harmonizing our equilibrium. Oh my gosh, this is all a play on words. Balancing out the scales. So we could look at those two platforms I shared earlier, or colanders, and say instead of just a flat scale, let's make those more two-dimensional, three-dimensional, and see that there's something inside of those scales. So our body is going through this period of equilibrium where we're transitioning from one version of ourselves into another version of ourselves. This also means that we're merging certain centers of gravity. I'm just in flow. Spaces of gravity, centering in gravity, and this changes our center in gravity. So it changes our relationship with time. We're able to merge certain and reunify with certain aspects dimensionally, dimensionless, but also interdimensionally. So we're actually merging from one perspective, this 3D, 4D, 5D, I'm hearing it's going through a period of transition. So we're wavering particle, wave, in and out of these dimensions. And what this is doing is it's giving us an opportunity to gravitate towards more of what we are seeking. We are gravitating towards less linearization. So things are becoming wonky again. And also, these patterns are coming up again because we're closer to them. I'm just sharing what I'm seeing. So somehow we've become closer. I'm hearing closer to the heart. Oh, 2112. Okay, so this takes me back into lights are low, moving in stereo. It's all inside of us, the cars. Okay, so I had this huge spin of this musical vocabulary that I had tuned into a few years back, and it actually might have been in 2021. So I'll have to go back and look at it, or 2020. So what this means is, from one perspective, is, and I'm seeing means, even playing with that, the golden means, the golden spiral, the sequencing of our DNA. So everything is in a period of transition and moving through this mutation, transformation, inscription, transcribing, embedding. What we're embedding within is giving us an enhanced conductivity. This enhanced conductivity is increasing our capacity to hold breadth and width. So if you picture those colanders are getting bigger. We're becoming more expansive. We can hold our breath longer. It's a play on words. Our breadth and our width. So I'm being shown that it's enhancing our quantitative structure in relationship with time that gives us access and the ability to access more at a quantum rate of intelligence. So I'm merging together this instruction set of codes of communication in a variety of ways. We're playing with our environment different. We're in the fourth dimension, essentially. We're playing with the musical qualities, and the notes are different because we're in a different dimension. So how we interpret with the sound, how we interpret what's going on in our bodies, our interaction with it is different. With it, WIDTH. Our bandwidths have broadened. So we have more spectrum. We have a higher spectrum. We have a higher per spectrum. We have a higher rate of conductibility. So this is giving us access to things in a different way. So I'm going to get real just basic with this for a moment. So let's say we have things we experienced in the last cycle in the scale associated, let's say, with what was going on in 2020, right? What was going on during this time frame. And we're getting to play with it in the now moment again. But we are making the conscious decision whether or not we are, and I'm seeing the Acura symbol, precision, the map maker, and I'm hearing topology, toxicology report with topology, and looking at this framework from a different waveform phonetics. Maybe I should have just written this all out and then recorded the video. I didn't realize I was going to go into this spin exactly in this way. But this is part of the message. This is how it works. We're kind of wobbling, right? In and out, and we're morphing and we're moving and we're grabbing these electrons, is what I'm being shown magnetically. We're pulling them to us, and then we're essentially breaking the glue that reforms them. So gluons, we're breaking them apart, and I'm seeing, like, do you guys remember when you were kids, did you ever bite on those wintergreen lifesavers and they sparked in the dark? So what I'm hearing is chomping at the bit. The information, BYT. I guess I should just go straight into flow. But what I'm seeing is that we're chomping this energy up. We're breaking it apart, and all the stuff that was encapsulated within this barrier, the barrier's broken. The sound barrier, how we communicate with sound, what we are able to extrapolate from sound, more is in there. So now we've opened all of this up, this can of worms, this quantum tunneling, and it's giving us access to things that were isolated before or cut off from us. Yet at the same time, this bubble of time that we're going to call 2020, was that when everything happened with COVID, let me just check it out real quick. So funny. 1, 20, 2, 20. So it was 1, 2, 0, 2, 0, 2, 0, or better spoken, 0, 1, 2, 0, 2, 0, 2, 0. So that was an imprint, that bubble in time. And now what's happening is that sound signature is, it created such a ripple and an echo that it's pulling us back towards it. However, and this is all a perspective that I'm offering about how this kind of works. From another perspective, we've tunneled out of that tunnel vision, and now we're actually the ones that are breaking apart that spell, the binding signature that held us locked in a particular timeline. And what I'm hearing is timeline strategy. And now we are reorganizing our center of gravity to overwrite that bit of information, to override that program. And it's having a quantum effect that is unparalleled, meaning we're not going to parallel that reality in the same way if we keep ourselves on track. And we recognize that these signatures that are coming up, I'm seeing these documents coming up like, oh, go ahead, sign this again. We need your signature again because it's expired. It's ran out. So now it's all being brought up. So we're able to access it again, but we're at a crossroads where we're choosing how we interact with it this time around. Are we going to re-sign the same documents? Are we going to break, I'm hearing two things, break bread. You know, before we didn't break bread with certain things because we were afraid to break bread with our neighbors. We were afraid to break bread with our family. We disagreed. Therefore, we couldn't commune with them. That's one thing. The other parallel that I'm seeing with this is breaking contracts. We are being gifted or given the opportunity. When I say gifted, I'm seeing a package. And I'm seeing this colander as a package that's being unwrapped and exposed. So we can see it for what it's worth. We can see really the value behind our own self-worth, our own packaging, our own acceleration that's happening that allows us to look back at this moment now, in the now, with compassion. And I'm hearing light the torch for others, like the Olympics, but I'm also seeing, I'm hearing ring around the rose, ring around the rosy, but it's ring around the rose, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Let it go. Here it is. Some of it is old energy that's trying to organize itself back into the now moment so that we can create a new chapter with that as part of our book. Do we want that in our book still? Can we tear out that page and burn it, ashes to ashes, and say, we no longer agree with this methodology, with this story, with this ideology, with this version of what I thought I was that now I see with eyes to see? I am no longer that. I've come to a new placement in my own reality, in my own life. So these are all questions we're being invited to ask ourselves. It gives us an opportunity to observe both colanders from this center place. And I'm hearing centripetal, right? So it's center petal, the center of the flower. We can see the petals, we can see the branches, but we don't have to just go down that particular branch. We can shift how it is that we're growing, what it is that we're looking at, and our idea of reality is shifting. So therefore, our ideas about reality are expanding. So that is the kind of inflow message that I've been getting about why we're feeling what we're feeling, and essentially we're balancing out the scales during this Libra season. And again, astrology is not my strong point. I'm hearing cup of tea and I'm seeing tea leaves. You know, you read the tea leaves, but you don't have to use astrology to read the tea leaves. You can use the tea leaves. You can use our environment. We can use synchronicity, symbolism. So we're interacting in a very different way with our everything, because we've essentially moved into a different energy, frequency, dimension, subset, bubble. And so that bubble doesn't work the same way the other bubble did, from my perspective. So therefore, our interpretation of our environment is going to be completely different for some of us. And I think that's what a lot of people are feeling. I hope this is kind of, giving, my intention is to create kind of a picture to play with, and not necessarily the in a non-linear fashion, right? So I think I'm going to do a part 2 and just kind of end on that note. So I'm being called to just stop for a moment and remind everybody our space of neutrality, our center of our own tube, our energy signature comes from the heart. And so it isn't just about the brain. It isn't just about the mechanics of the body. It isn't just about, we have to combine and work with it all together in unification with our heartbeat, with that rhythm, with that drum, ba-boom, ba-boom, creating the sound, creating that energy that then ripples out like the bubbles and pings off of our environment, our reality that we are creating through this tubular network, which I'll get to in just a moment or next. So go into the heart. And so hopefully that gave us a little bit of clarity around what we're feeling. Just remember to get into the heart and get into a space of compassion, neutrality, and patience, and breathe. Namaste.